to the next level. Prabhu has been extraordinary, but what he did, he came to Krishna consciousness in 1980. He joined the Bhaktivedanta Manor in 1981. He was an electronics, he was an aeronautical engineer from Aston University. He was working in central London, but when he became a part of Manor, very actively presenting, and he was also in charge of Chaitanya College of Vedic Studies in Worcester, which was very famous at that particular period of time in the 80s. And Prabhu was also involved in being a part of Save the Manor campaign, which was a big thing, especially in the ISKCON world during the 80s, from 84, 85 onwards till 90 odd. And it was a great thing. There are a lot of, you can probably see in, if you go to Manor, and maybe there will some photographs, you can see Sunil Gavaskar, Rishi Kapoor, Anil Kapoor, many of these great film stars and celebrities, they were a part of this to protect the temple. So then Trikalajna Prabhu had to move on to Radha Parthasarthi temple in New Delhi. If you get a chance to go and visit this temple in New Delhi, you'll be astonished what a fantastic project this is. This is amazing, one of the top projects of India in the 90s. And it was not so small at that point of time. It was considered, it's a very big, now we are talking about TOVP, but we are talking about Radha Parthasarthi temple being established as a educational center, as a Vedic study center kind of thing. Gopal Krishna Maharaj wanted it to be in a very, very elaborated manner. The President of India, Prime Ministers, many celebrities, many politicians, they have been there. They have continued to go and visit the lordships and take their blessings. So Prabhu was the temple president for 9 years, and he was also connected with Sri Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. Now we are actually going to connect to Vrindavan because he is stationed in Vrindavan. So we'll be hearing from him from Vrindavan. But Prabhu also spent almost good 10 years, he being the temple president for Washington, D.C., Potomac Temple, which is a very famous temple in the West world. And now he is focused. But to be honest, he is connected to all of us through Nilambar Prabhu and Bharti Revati Mataji. So they are connected to Trikalajna Prabhu, but our liking is that we are so competently unworthy that he is giving us his costless mercy to us. So we thank him for his private time and giving us his mercy that we are not qualified for. And I don't know what to say, but all I can say is we all greet him with a big Haribol, and then we will hear from him what Krishna want us to know today at this point of time. Let's chant with a big Haribol and greet him. Trikalajna Prabhu ki
Jai.
Haribol.
Great. So
Prabhupada ki jai.
So Ramkane Prabhu, can you focus on Trikalajna Prabhu? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Over to you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
So Hare Krishna to everyone. My koti pranams to everyone. Vanchakal patabhischa kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So I would like to start by singing a bhajan, and then I will read the text and then give a short discourse, and it will be nice if we can have some questions so that there will be some interaction. Now, before I start the bhajan, I'd just like to mention about my Guru Maharaj, because she happened to mention him also. How I started my Krishna consciousness was on the high streets of Wembley. I was on the high street of Wembley and I met two devotees. One of them is now called Sakya Premdas. His name used to be Sakya Ras. And the other one was Atma Nivedan. So I had never seen, brahmacharis in England, especially after I'd come into England, on the streets, shining bald heads and looking so happy, such big smiles on their faces. And I could not I could not but stop looking at them. I was completely mesmerized. And they saw me looking at them, so they came across the street. I was on the other side of the street. And at the time, I was like one of the fans of the Beatles. So they gave me a big LP whereby George Harrison is singing My Sweet Lord, a book called Planting the Seed. Planting the Seed is Prabhupada's journey from the east to the west, whereby he goes through, some real austere time, having 2 heart attacks, and then landing into New York, and then coming to Tompkins Square Park, and where Srila Prabhupada is sitting under the tree in Tompkins Square Park, and Prabhupada had just only a pair of bottles, nothing else, and he closes his eyes, he meditates upon the Supreme Lord, and he starts doing kirtans. And some 20 minutes later, when Prabhupada opens his eyes, he sees a whole group of, Americans, mostly hippies, sitting around him, some are standing around him, chanting like that. So this book was there, and a bead bag, and the beads. They gave me all these items after preaching to me for like a few minutes, and then said, give whatever you'd like to give. Now, I was a student at Western University at the time, so I only had 80 cents in my pocket. So I gave all 80 cents to them, and they said, you don't have any more to give? I said, no, I'm a student. However, to cut the long kind of thing into short is that they convinced me that take the book. I was giving them the book back. I said, I need the LP because I was attached to listening to what George Harrison was singing on that. So they said, no, you can take everything. There's 2 conditions. One is you chant 1 round every day. Keep in mind that this is on the high state of Wembley. And they made me chant. We were standing on the stage and we chanted 1 round together, which took about 10 minutes in those days. And after that, they said, take the book also, but the second condition is you must read the book. I must read the book. So I promised, and they were gone and I was gone, and I was living in Slav at the moment at that time. And I had to figure out how I'm going to go home because I didn't even have, in those days, it was like 6 cents or something to get from Wembley to Slav, but I didn't even have 6 cents. Somehow or another, I met my cousin on the street. It was Krishna's arrangement, and then I managed to get home. But as I was going home, I started reading the book, Planting the Seed, and I was so touched. I was so touched by the austerity Srila Prabhupada performed at his age. And then I went home, and I was just reading through the night. My mother came to me several times, eat, and I said, yes, just leave it. I'll eat later. And the third time, she came and put the plate on my table so that I would eat. And I read the book through the night until I finished reading the book. It's a small book, Planting the Seed. But I was very touched by Srila Prabhupada's austerities, and then, how Mukunda Maharaj meets him in the Tompkins Square Park, and he asks him, where is your ashram? And Prabhupada said, this is my ashram, the tree in Tompkins Square Park. And Mukunda Maharaj was initially thought Prabhupada was being humorous, but then he realized that this Swami is being serious. So he took him to his apartment. And he literally gave his apartment to Srila Prabhupada, and he rented the apartment next door for himself. So that was what really touched my heart, that like, wow, the Americans can go out of their way, or just by listening to a kirtan and a short speech, there must be something about this whole thing. So as a result of that, I was meditating upon, Srila Prabhupada, Mukunda Maharaj's devotees. And then it was much later in 79 when I came to Bhaktivedanta Manor, because I was still a student. And then gradually I joined. And then I met Srila Mukunda Goswami. And later on, we took initiation from him. But it was the planting the seed that really touched my heart. It was really something. So, books are the basis of our movement. And that means not only the movement, we are part and parcel of the movement. And if we take to the reading of Srila Prabhupada's books seriously, then the basis or the foundation of our spiritual life becomes very strong. And that is what happened to me. I took the books very seriously. And to date, my Guru Maharaj's instruction is that read Prabhupada books at least 3 hours a day. 3 hours a day. I read Srila Prabhupada's books. Sometimes if I'm really tired or a little sick or more sick, then I will listen to his lectures, Prabhupada's lectures online or on YouTube. And that really helps us a lot. So let us start. I'd like to sing Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo Mori, and then I'll get into the text. And then we'll have a short discourse, and then you can ask questions. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo Mori Guna Bina Ke Dayalu Jagat Samsare Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatara Masama Patita Prabhu Na Paivara Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Baba Lokena Karo Ami Badadukhi Daya Karo Sitapati Advaita Gosai Tava Kripa Bale Pai Chaitanya Nitai Aswarup Sanatana Rupara Gunata Yuga Jiva Prabhu Lokinata Daya Karo Sri Acharya Prabhu Srinivasa Ramachandra Sangha Mage Narottama Dasa Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo Mori Bina Ke Dayalu Jagat Samsare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Nitai Gauranga Bolo Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Bolo Nitai Gauranga Jai Sachinandana Gaurari Jai Sachinandana Gaurari Gaura Gaura Gaurari Gaura Shama Sundara, Shama Sundara, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Gauranita, 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 Jaya Gauranita. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Pitai Gauru Pramanandi. Om Vishnupad. Srimad is divine grace. ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय नाम आचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय Thanks to God, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, text 9. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So text 9. Dharmasya hi api vargasya nartho arthayopakalpate nathasya dharmaikantasya kama labhai prasmitaha. Dharmasya, occupational engagement, he certainly apavargasya, ultimate liberation, na, not, arthaha, and arthaya, for material gain. Upakalpate is meant for, na, neither, arthasya, of material gain. Dharma eka antasya, for one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service. Kama, sense gratification. Labhya, attainment, he exactly. Smrita is described by the great sages. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace S.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to the sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Purport. We have already discussed that pure devotional service to the Lord is automatically followed by perfect knowledge and detachment from material existence. But there are others who consider that all kinds of different occupational engagements, including those of religion, are meant for material gain. The general tendency of any ordinary man in any part of the world is to gain some material profit in exchange for religious or any other occupational service. Even in the Vedic literatures, for all sorts of religious performances, an allurement of material gain is offered, and most people are attracted by such allurements or blessings of religiosity. Why are such so-called men of religion allured by material gain? Because material gain can enable one to fulfill desires, which in turn satisfies sense gratification. This cycle of occupational engagements includes so-called religiosity followed by material gain, and material gain followed by fulfillment of desires. Sense gratification is a general way for all sorts of fully occupied men. But in the statement of Sutta Goswami, as per the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, this is nullified by the present sloka. One should not engage himself in any sort of occupational service for material gain only, nor should material gain be utilized for sense gratification. How material gain should be utilized is described in the following text. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Sarasudeve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Praschatade Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So reading translation again. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never, I repeat, they should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to the sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. It's a nice text that is educating us as to how we should be alert and be very careful not to fall into the trap whereby we either get power or we get into a position whereby we get so much wealth in our hands and we misappropriate. And in the Bhagavad Gita, in 3rd chapter, Krishna Bhagavan is saying that Kama esa krodha esa rajogun samadbhava mahasana mahapapa vidhi enam eva vairina. And in this shloka, the Supreme Lord is saying that it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is all devouring sinful enemy in this world. Because in the text here, Prabhupada is also asking a question, why religious people or religious leaders also fall into the trap. So here Krishna is very clearly stating that we have to be very, very careful. If we are not, then we'll fall into the department of lust. Lust means it's form of greed that drives us into the negative direction, whereby we end up doing things which we shouldn't be. Like in Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada is saying that when a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or in other words, the senses of love of God becomes transformed into lust as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity. So, we are very fortunate. We are followers of Krishna. Who is Krishna? Krishna is in Vrindavan, people say Krishna is that little boy or little baby. They see him as Makan Chor. They see him as the greatest thief, butter thief. Generally, if you ask the Brajbasis what's the description of Krishna or description of God, they will not say, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and all that stuff. They don't say that. They are so intimately connected with Krishna. So like, for example, if you go to Bandirvan, there, when the prasad is ready to be offered, or bhog is ready to be offered to Krishna, they'll make the plate for Krishna and they'll make plates for all the family members. And then they'll put Krishna's plate on his altar and they'll sit side by side and they'll put the plates and then they will eat with Krishna. Why? Because in Bandirvan, there's a pastime whereby Krishna goes and sits with the families and he eats partakes prasad there with the families. So as far as the Bandirvanis are concerned, they still continue that tradition that Krishna is a family member and they are family members of Krishna. So you go to Nandgaon, there's another pastime. You go to Barsan, there's another pastime. You go to Terkadam, another pastime. You go to so many. There's like 1,500 villages and places where Krishna has performed so many pastimes. So in case you plan to come to Vrindavan, don't come for 2 days. You need to visit 1,500 villages. So even if you do 3 a day, you need 500 days. So take a sabbatical. I often jokingly tell people that take a sabbatical for a year and then come and relish the pastimes of Krishna, Raghunath, Das Goswami, he says that he wouldn't go to even Dwarka for a moment because he doesn't want to see Krishna in his royal form. He is just happy seeing Krishna in his Brajvasi form, in a coward boy form, in a baby form, and he just loved to relish the pastimes of Krishna in that form. We are all very fortunate. I'll give you an example to kind of explain how we are so much more fortunate than masses of people in the world. One time, when I was doing some part-time work in Washington, one of my staff members, he didn't have a car, and nighttime as we were leaving, he said, "Mr. T, can I take a ride with you?" And I said, "Yes." So he jumped into the car with me, and on the back seat of my car, there's a lot of children's book. And he looked on the back seat and he saw the book, and the title was Butter Thief. He looked at it and he said, "What is that book? A butter thief?" It's like people have heard of thieves, but like a butter thief, it like really caught his mind and senses. So I said, "Yeah." I said, "Take that book today, read it, and bring it back tomorrow or whenever you finish reading." He said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes." And he took the book with him. And he came back the next day and he said, "Mr. T, can I ask you?" Because I was a manager then, so they would refer to me, different respect. So he said, "Mr. T, who are these Gopas and who are these Gopis?" So I was explaining to him. So that way I got started preaching to him, about Krishna consciousness. Gradually he gave up his meat eating and everything. But the point is, when we are doing Krishna's pastimes and reading Krishna stories or reading Bhagavatam, and like Prabhupada says that those people who are born in Indian bodies or born in India, they're very fortunate. What it means is that we are brought up with the names of Lord Ram and Lord Krishna. Maybe we don't understand who Krishna is. Maybe we don't understand who Ram is. Even today, we don't understand him fully. We understand him very, very, partially. Maybe 0.001% we understand him. We think we know, but actually, in reality, we don't. There's a long way to go. So, Prabhupada also said that don't try to understand the Brajvasis. Just follow what I have given you, because you try to understand the Brajvasis. For example, you go to Mandirvan and you see that everyone is just eating prasadam at the same time as Krishna. Initially, it's definitely very bewildering until somebody explains to you, this is a tradition, this is why we do. So, for us to stay in light and not to be in illusion, this is part of the topic today. And it's very important that we understand that if we get any form of power, or if we get any form of gains in the form of wealth or otherwise, we should not misappropriate it. It's very important. Because we do have the free will, but we do not have the freedom. Keep in mind, we have the free will, but we do not have the freedom to do what we like. And if you do whatever you feel like, for example, if I'm a government officer and I do something that is not within the laws of the rules and regulations of the government, a person can end up in jail. So we have to keep that in mind very seriously. And just to make us understand that we are all governed by the laws of karma. We are all governed by the laws of karma. Sukadeva Goswami has given us the first 9 cantos of so many examples. Every canto there is an example of how the law of karma is governing the personalities who are involved in that particular episode, in each chapter or in each canto. And only after 9th canto we can enter 10th canto. Although people like to go into the 10th canto, but if you go straight into the 10th canto, we will commit a lot of offenses. So try to avoid that. We have an occupational duty in this human form, and we should follow the occupational duty that is given to us. And remember, the law of karma applies to everyone, from a beggar to the king. Everyone is under the law of karma. At the same time, the process of making advancement and process of achieving Krishna prema, this process of going into bhakti marg is the same It hasn't changed. It's the same. Right down from all the way from Lord Brahma up to Srila Prabhupada in Thompson's Girl Park today. And today, as we are sitting here, the process is the same. It's very simple. Chanting the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare. Even the great personalities in the heavenly planets, whether it's Lord Shiva, Lord Indra, Lord Brahma, they're all chanting the holy name of the Lord. So, in the Bhagavad Gita also, in the 3rd chapter, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, Arjuna is giving so many wonderful, very kind of logical arguments as to why he should not fight. And when you read those arguments, you think, yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense. But then Krishna is, he's nullifying all those arguments. He's very, very intelligently nullifying all those arguments. And then Krishna tells him, and leave even those arguments that are given you, leave them aside. He said, what you do is just to satisfy me, just to please me, you carry out your personal duty. Just out of your love for me, you carry out your, your duties. Can you imagine, like, if Arjuna, our swabhav, our nature, each one of us has a nature. So that nature, it cannot be easily forgotten. Say if Arjuna said, okay, I put my bow and arrow down, I go and live in a village, and see Arjuna is just sitting in the village chanting the holy name. And suddenly a lion will come. Do you think Arjuna is going to sit there and simply chant the holy name, or is he going to get up and do something? For sure, as a Kshatriya, he's going to get up. And he's either going to kill the lion or he's going to drive the lion away. That is his occupational duty. It is nature. A Kshatriya will always fight. If there is a problem, he will get up and he will do the needful. So similarly, Krishna is, giving him, enlightening him that, like, go ahead and fight. Don't waste time. Just fight. And you're fighting for dharma. It's not like you're fighting for adharma. The other side was fighting for to achieve higher powers of adharma, and that's why, because they were misappropriating their powers, they all got annihilated. They all got killed. In the Antya Lila, 9th chapter. 9th chapter is all about how Gaura Prema is constantly flowing. But it starts with Gopinath Patnaik. Gopinath Patnaik was the son of Bhavananda Rai. And Bhavananda Rai had like 5 sons. And 2 of his sons, Ramananda Rai, the famous Ramananda Rai, and Gopinath Patnaik, they were both in the government services. So while in the government services, somehow or other, Gopinath Patnaik misappropriated like 200,000 kauris. How many? 200,000 kauris, which is a lot of wealth. So it was brought to the king's attention, and then the king called him. So Gopinath, when he was questioned, he was trying to understand how he had misappropriated so many kauris. Kauris are in those days like the shells, seashells, the tiny ones. But in those days, they had a lot of value. So 200,000 kauris were missing or misappropriated. So the king asked him, and he said, Gopinath said, look, I honestly don't know how this has happened. I don't hear them. I don't know what's happened. However, Gopinath, he offered the king, he said, look, I have some wealth and I have horses. So if I sell some of my horses, I'll be able to repay you. And hence the king agreed. And the king told his eldest son, whose name was Purushottam Jana. Purushottam Jana was the eldest son of the king, Prataprudra. King Prataprudra was reigning the throne at that time. And he appointed his son. His son was a little arrogant and also tricky. So he went with Gopinath, and then Gopinath was saying, look, this is my horse, this is my another horse, these are the horses. And actually he had some of the best horses in the kingdom. And they were very, very expensive. However, the prince, he was just being arrogant, and he wasn't even listening to what Gopinath was saying. And he kept looking in the sky and down and, pretending that like he's listening. And then he said, no, it's not worth that much. So this went on for some time. And Gopinath Patnaik was getting really frustrated, especially because he was also at ministerial level in the kingdom. So when you have such a high position and then you are in this kind of situation, it's difficult to be humble. You know, it was difficult for him to be humble. So he happened to remark, he said, even my horses, my such valuable horses, they are more obedient and they are more cultured. And he just kind of glorified his horses, in indirectly indicating that you're a prince, but you don't even know how to respect people. You know, you don't even know how to be compassionate towards people. So as a result, the prince got very upset. And he decided that this Gopinath Patnaik is too much. He's being offensive to the king and to the son of the king. So he should be sentenced to death. Excuse me. So he took him to the king and explained to the king that he made a big sin out of it, that look, this person is not worthy of the kingdom. He is even offending your son. I am your prince. I'm the eldest son. I will be the next king. And henceforth, such people should not be allowed to stay in our kingdom. And I want you, the king, to sentence him to death. So the king sentenced him to death. Now in those days, their sentence was very gruesome. It was very cruel. There was what was called a changa. Changa is like they'll put the person on a very great height, and then they'll throw the person from the height. And when he lands, there are swords, sharp swords sitting. They're sunk into the ground, and the body will fall into the sharp swords, and the person gets slain. So this is the death sentence that was given to Gopinath Patnaik. Now, keep in mind, his father, Bhavananda Rai, was an associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You know? And his sons were also associates. His friends were associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, there is Gopinath on the right at the last moment. He's got to be thrown. And crowds, you know. In those days, it was like anybody is going to be hanged, just like in the Western countries. It was like if somebody was sentenced to death in a few centuries back, in the cowboy world, they used to hang the people. If you found guilty of, you know, any intense criminal act, then you'd be sentenced to death and you would be hanged, and everyone would just get gathered around. There's two purposes. One purpose is obviously everyone is, you know, coming out to see what's happening, and it's really happening. And the other purpose why the government would do such a thing is to put deep level of fear in people's minds so that they will not misappropriate anything, you know, or they will not do any misconduct whereby, you know, they will create disturbance in the society. So recently I read in the net by one part, it's saying that like in the times when the British Empire was expanding, one guy from England had gone to Afghanistan, and he was going around with this one of the locals, and he saw that all the shops were just open, everything's outside, even when they're doing namaz at night time, nothing is closed. So he found out that actually there is a very strict rule there, that if anyone is caught stealing, then their hands will be chopped off. And so he was talking to his friend and he's saying, so even if you steal a pen or something small, you get your hands chopped off? And he said, yes, theft is a theft, you get punished. So this gentleman was going on and on, but this is not fair, and you know, it's not the right thing. And then the Afghani turned around and said, he said, how many days you've been here for? So many days, right? How many people have you seen without hands? Not a single, you know, because that is high level of discipline. Nobody wants to have a hand chopped off here. So even in Ireland, before the black slave trade started, you know, the slave trade was from the British Empire. They were taking, you know, people from Sudra class from Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, and even England. They were taking them as slaves. You know? And sometimes if the slaves reacted, or you know, they said even words out of anger, then they were also, you know, sentenced to death, so that no slave would you know, offend. so-called royalty. So from that you can understand. I think it was that era where throughout the world somehow or another, the Changa was involved, even in the King Prataparudha's, reigning. And luckily, Gopinath was saved. Mysteriously, Gopinath was saved because the followers of Lord Chaitanya, including Bhavananda, they all went to see Lord Chaitanya. Actually, Bhavananda wasn't, because Bhavananda and some of the brothers and some of family members were all imprisoned because of what Gopinath did. However, there are many followers of Lord Chaitanya, and it is said that Anya Gana, Anya means unlimited, Gana means they are devotees of Lord Chaitanya. If Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains that you may find a science whereby you can count the number of particles in the universe, not just in the planet Earth, but even in the whole universe, you may be able to count the number of particles. But he said you will not be able to count the number of devotees or followers of Lord Chaitanya, because he has so many followers and the unlimited followers of Lord Chaitanya throughout the universe, and you will never be able to count them. It's just unlimited, and they're ever growing from one generation to another generation to another. There's not a time when Lord Chaitanya's mercy or Gaura Prema is not flowing. Starting from Lord Chaitanya in this era, you can see Lord Chaitanya is there, and then you have Shivananda, and then you have Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, one generation after another generation after another generation. They are devotees who are continuously, preaching the art of Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga. And right down to Srila Prabhupada, of course, normally when Lord Chaitanya appeared, Lord Advaitacharya was, praying and calling for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to come. But Srila Prabhupada was so merciful, he had not to be called. He just descended out of compassion, out of mercy. And he went all over the world. Not just in Bharatvass here, but in the actual Bharatvass. The whole world is known as Bharatvass at one time. So, so what happened is that when he was when he was on Gopinath Patnaik was on the Changa, the minister was one of the ministers was influenced by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through his external Sakti, his extraordinary potency. So the minister went to the king and he said, "Hey, listen, this is one of your ministers also. Don't hang him like this. Don't kill him like that. At least recount everything that's happened. Maybe there is some error. There is some problem. It will not be fair to kill somebody like this." And so the king recounted the whole episode, and he came to a conclusion that actually he was doing the wrong thing. So he immediately sent a message to saying, stop killing him, and he reverted the death sentence. So literally being on the verge of being thrown, now he's brought down, and the king arranged a pardon for him. He arranged for flowers and garlands to receive him back in the kingdom. He freed all his family members, and at the same time he gave him twice the salary that he was earning. So after all this ceremony was over, then Gopinath went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he prostrated. He said, "My dear Lord, you are so merciful." He said, "Incredible mercy is flowing from you." And how? He explains, he said that the minister interacting and doing this was your causeless mercy. And however, I consider that even as a secondary point. The primary point he said was that when I was being taken on the Changa and I was held there, bound by ropes and everything, I was meditating simply on your lotus feet, and I was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And because I was chanting this holy name, you saved me and you saved my family. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is causeless, is flowing causelessly. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he can come in any form, anytime to save us. We have to take Lord Chaitanya's mercy very, very sincerely, very, very seriously. My personal experience in my life, whether it's Bhaktivedanta Manor campaign or going to Delhi temple to build a new temple, or going to Washington again to save another temple, or going to Baltimore to build a temple. Everywhere I learned one thing. Uh, we had many nice proper disciples, and one time one of the devotees, he told me that, we have to. He was giving a lecture. He was one of the very senior devotees in the early days, Bhumadev, and he was giving a lecture as to faith, Shraddha. Shraddha comes from us from within, with some experience and knowledge to put together. It's like Sambandha, Abhidaya, and then Prayojana. Sambandhan is to realize that we have a connection with Guru and Gauranga. We have connection with Krishna through the Guru Parampara and through our present Guru. Once you understand that and you realize that, then you go to the process. Abhidaya is the process. So you go through the process of practicing Krishna consciousness. And then you come to a stage whereby you start relishing Krishna consciousness. And this is also one way to kind of test yourself. Where are you at? Where am I at? How is my chanting? Am I enjoying my chanting, or I'm struggling with my chanting? Chanting, if you're at an advanced stage, nothing will matter. You will just chant and you'll release the chanting. Chanting is everything for us. If you can really chant nicely and release the chanting, then so many things will be taken care of. Srila Prabhupada's quote a few days ago, we read Srila Prabhupada's quote every day in the morning after Mangalarti. And in this quote, Srila Prabhupada says that if you drop something, for example, you have a diamond ring and accidentally drop it in the water, you wait for the water to settle down, because when something falls in the water, there is wavy movements, and you have to wait till the water settles down, and then you look down and you can see the ring or whatever you dropped, and you pick it out of the water. I said, likewise, when we are having challenges in life, we have to just be calm, be relaxed, wait for the tidal wave to settle down. And the best thing to do is sit and chant the holy name, or be engaged in the chanting of the holy name or the kirtans. And then you will see, as time goes, the challenges will also go. There is no challenge such as permanently there. Challenges will come and go. We know that padam padam vipadam, every step there is some challenge waiting, for us to deal with. But those people who deal with those challenges with shraddha, with faith within the heart, that makes a big difference. That will make a big difference in your life. So learn to deal with the challenges and problems of life. Like saying in this text here, be very careful. If you get power, you get wealth, you get uplifted at different position, whatever, do not misuse it. If you get a better position or better wealth, think of how best you can utilize it in the service of Krishna. Do it for Krishna. Yeah, if you're a smart person and you can get up there in the politics, or get up there in the industrial world, or you can get up there in the wealthy world and become one of the richest person or one of the greatest person, do it, but do it for Krishna. When you get to that position, you give the Krishna prem to masses of people to the maximum extent that you can. Because the more you give Krishna to the others, the more realization, or the deeper the realization comes. And the deeper the realization is there, the deeper the love will be there from within us for Krishna and for all the living entities. There is no joy that you can experience which is equal to when you are giving. And what is the best thing to give? To give Krishna Prem, to give the holy name to the other people, to other living entities. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of his purports, is explaining that devotees are merciful, and there are suffering souls who are in ignorance. Their life is like living in a desert. In the desert, you cannot find anything good. You can't even find a decent plant. And if you find a plant, it is simply a cactus tree full of thorns. So more or less, that is of no use to us. And devotees, they are so merciful and so compassionate that when they meet these souls who have desert-like hearts, they have desert-like hearts. That's what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying. Devotees will go and nurture that desert and turn that field into a field of flowers, fruits, gardens, greenery, and bring Haritva, In the desert, generally there is no Haritva. Haritva means like the direct understanding on mundane platform is Hari is like greenery. Tva means no greenery in the desert. But actually, the nice way Vishwanath Chakravarti takes Haritva as he says Hari is Hari, Supreme Lord, and he gives Tva means he gives the mercy of the Supreme Lord or Lord Chaitanya to the devotees, through the devotees to those people who have desert-like hearts. So very nicely explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur there. So that is our role. Our role should be under all circumstances, try and be a good devotee. Try and solve the suffering source. The more you give, the more you will get. There's no doubt about it. The, the the deeper your faith will be as you are more giving, because you'll see it's just like if you preach. In the early days when I was at Bhaktivedanta Manor, there was two couples, my wife, myself, and there's another Australian couple. We used to go and preach at three universities: Birmingham, City of London, and down south in Southampton. And every year we used to make, like on average, 10 to 15 recruits from each university after years hard work. So we bring back to the manor about 40 to 45 students who would become devotees. And the nicest thing to see was that after a year, they shave up, they put a tilak on, they're running to Mangalarti, and they're going out on book distribution. In those days, book distribution was like really vibrant. Everyone used to run out to do book distribution. It's just such a deep level of joy. You cannot explain to you how nice it feels when you see that somebody who's been suffering and now their whole life is changed, and that someone you had the privilege, that Prabhupada chose us and gave us the privilege to help these suffering souls and then bring them back home. Bhaktivedanta Manor is also like Golokdam. That's where we have the agency of Golokdam there. We bring devotees there, we train them, and then we send them back home, back to Golokdam. So I'll stop here. I think I've gone on for a long time. If there is any comments or questions, I can invite that now.
Thank you for a very inspiring class, Prabhu. There are a lot of wonderful pastimes you touched upon, and these are some things which the current set of devotees are not exposed to. Many of them are not used to Chaitanya Charitamrita or to deeper sections of Srimad Bhagavatam. But nevertheless, the gist and the theme, thematically you presented it, is very much appreciated. This is a very inspiring point, because most of us are in our daily routine. We are finding it very difficult to practice Krishna consciousness also, along with our challenges of our daily course, whether you're working or a student, or whether you're studying in some college or anything. But is there kind of a tip or a suggestion or a solution which you think it's good and very useful for all of us here? Because we are not completely dedicated 100% in Krishna consciousness at this point of time. But we are trying our level best to practice the process which has been given by Srila Prabhupada. So is there a way by which you think that we all, as Grihastha staying at house, because the sloka itself is a very strong sloka. It has a very strong meaning to it. So if you can kindly give us some your kind thoughts and words of wisdom, wherein we can practically as Grihastha practice, that will be very helpful.
So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a great example. Sometimes when we want to become good devotees or good in anything, any field, like if you are a sports person, what will you do? You look at the top athletes, or the top tennis player or the top cricket player, whatever your interest is in, and you watch that person, you see what his lifestyle is, you see everything like that, and then that inspires you. You may not become Sunil Gavaskar, you may not become the greatest tennis player, but at least because that inspiration is there, you can become a good personality in that field. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had many children. He had a Grihastha ashram. He had a very important service in the community. He was a judge, and he was very smart. He was giving judgments. Even the British government was very happy with him because he was very crystal clear in his questioning and then in making his decisions. And yet, he was chanting 64 rounds. Just imagine, how was he doing that? 64 rounds, and on top of that, he was writing books. So that's like a great example. We cannot be Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but like he's a great inspirator for her. Same thing with Srila Prabhupada. If you look at Prabhupada sannyasi, he was not a grihastha. In the Pancha Tattva, figures, 3 of them are also grihasthas. But we look at the great personalities who are grihasthas, in our parampara, and see how their lifestyle was, how Bhaktivinoda Thakur's lifestyle was. And there's example also for those people who are single. If you're a single brahmachari or a sannyasi, there's also examples of how you should be performing your austerities with love and devotion. What makes all the difference is that when you embrace this process of bhakti, embrace it naturally, embrace it honestly, sincerely, then it becomes easier for us to follow. Discipline is very much required. Anything you do in life, discipline is required. And that discipline comes much more easily when you have good association of devotees. It's just like you are doing this program. This is a great program, a morning program. Even if it's once a week, it's a great program because it's an inspiration for devotees. And in the weekdays, they can have their own timings. Maybe they get up a little early. I remember when I met one of the sannyasis in the early days, and I had started by chanting 4 rounds, and I went to 7, and then I'd go to 11. So I was going to 11, and this devotee said to me, "How many you're doing?" I said, 11. He said, "Why? Well, I work," and all this started as petty excuses we make. It's the mind that makes all the excuses for us, So he said, "Well, it's very simple. Eat a little less, sleep a little less, and talk a little less, and keep away from the Bollywood movies or whatever you're watching." When you meet somebody on the street, it's very easily, you just snap away 20 minutes and you don't even think, I just lost 20 minutes, Just to be on the humor side that there's so many things going on about this weight loss. And there's so many different strategies. You do this and you lose this much weight. You do this and you lose that much weight, So this person had done this cartoon, and it shows this person, and then it shows the same person after 2 weeks. And he said, "Do you notice the difference?" It's like, it's exactly the same. The weight is the same. The height is the same. There's no change in weight. And he says, "What did he lose?" He says, "He lost 2 weeks." Instead, he lost his time because he didn't endeavor. He didn't try anything. So endeavor in our life, in whatever we're doing, sincere endeavor with perseverance is very important. We have to be serious about bhakti. And just like if you're working in a bank, you got to be there, dot on time, and you cannot leave before the time is up. Wherever you're working, your timings. So you follow the discipline. You don't make excuses, that I don't have time. You have to make time. So same thing, you make an assessment that it takes me 2 hours to chant 16 rounds, and then I read half an hour and I do this puja and everything. I sort it out, work it out around my chart. You have 24 hours in a day, and you don't need to sleep 8, 10, 12 hours. People have a tendency to sleep 8 hours, 10 hours. Reduce that sleep. It's just mode of ignorance. You're not gaining anything when you're sleeping. Prabhupada said 6 hours is good enough, although he only slept 2.5 hours. But as you perform austerities and you go out preaching, whatever you're practicing, give it to others. Don't just keep it to yourself. Because if you meet other people who are in ignorance, and you bring this bhakti process into their life, what will happen is it's a practice for you. Knowingly or unknowingly, you are also doing the same thing, because you're giving to somebody else and you say, well, you must chant 16 rounds, or you must do this, or you must do that. You also have to be doing it. Prabhupada was the greatest example. He was doing everything. In the early days, he cooked in the 26th 2nd Avenue. He cooked, did the shopping, he did all the washing, he did all the cooking, and then all this, visitors would come. He would lay out the thalis by himself. He would serve prasadam to them, even though it was only 15 or 20, but he would do it by himself. When they are gone in the evening, he would pick up their plates. Just think, this was Prabhupada. He would take up their plates and he would wash them. This was his love for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya's movement. This was his love for his Guru Maharaj, that his Guru Maharaj had given him some instruction and he's carrying it out. So when we should look at these great examples, then our challenges then become so tiny. Then you suddenly realize, actually, I'm just making excuses. Don't make excuses. Be honest to yourself. Every moment counts. Every moment counts. And when your last breath is going to come, you have no idea. It's not like we know that I have, 2 more years or 5 more years or 7 more years or maybe 7 more days. Who knows? We don't know. So take that every moment of your life very seriously. So we take the moment of our life seriously, we take our life seriously, and we also understanding the science is so important that look, at the time of death, I don't want to take another birth in this planet because there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that I'm going to be born in an aristocratic family or in a family of devotees in Mayapur or Vrindavan. There is no guarantee, because whatever you do in this lifetime, according to the karmas, you'll end up going to some other form. It could be an animal form. Do you really want to look at the animals, how they're suffering on the streets? Especially, it's one thing when people in Europe or American countries, they keep cats and dogs in the house and they feed them 3 times. But generally, animals don't get. It is said generally that all animals are going hungry every day. Practically every day they're going hungry. They are struggling and striving for food. So do you want to be in a body like that? Whether you're an aquatic body, animal body, plant body, none of the other bodies are of joy. It's only suffering, suffering, and suffering. But in this body, while we are suffering, we have the consciousness, we can understand how to stop the suffering and how to actually get joy in this lifetime itself, so that next life is not here. There is no more next life. You get your Swarup Siddhi, you get your original spiritual form, whereby you can be, in bliss forever and ever. That's how I feel. Anybody questions or anything else?
Anybody wants to ask a question to Prabhu? Prabhu is here giving his private, very wonderful time. And this is the chance for all of us to jump and ask all that what you have in your thoughts. It's very important. Don't lose this opportunity, as Prabhu said.
I have a question. First of all, thank you for a nice class. Very inspirational, as Prabhu said. Please accept my humble obeisances. So in life we have challenges, and sometimes it's difficult to even focus on our Krishna consciousness to help us come out of those challenges. You yourself recently went through some major challenge in your life, where you contracted COVID, you were in hospital recovering, and you went through a difficult period then. How did you cope? Because like you say, if we see how somebody copes, how we learn from their example, and then that we can apply in our lives. So when you were in hospital and you must have been suffering quite badly, how did you remember Krishna? What did you do? How did you overcome that challenge with your bhakti?
Generally we say chant and be happy, but I revert that and I say be happy and chant. Because if you're happy, your chanting will become blissful. If you think that if I chant and one day I'll become happy, then you can continue trying. So have a good laugh in the morning when you get up, regardless of where you are. Say, thank you, Krishna. So today I've been able to open my eyes, and that I can have another day whereby I can chant your holy name. I can think of you. I can thank Srila Prabhupada. I can thank the devotees. I can thank my wife or husband, whoever is cooking in the house, so there's some prasadam to eat. Everything that we get, we should be thankful for. Now, coming to the serious part of it, when I was in COVID and I was in ICU, I realized that they give you so many injections that my realization in that COVID position was that actually is the antibiotics and the injections that they give you kills you more than the COVID kills you. Because they give you like 12, 15 injections a day, all kinds of antibiotics. And they're heavy. The minute you have 4 or 5 injections, those 10 people in my ward, everyone would fall asleep within 15 or 20 minutes because they are giving you so many injections. Your body can't take that. So I realized on the second day that if I'm not careful, these guys are going to kill me, you know. And I was remembering Srila Prabhupada because I had this little box where Srila Prabhupada chants. I plugged it in and I had Srila Prabhupada chanting. So second day when I got up and they were going to give me injections, I prayed to Prabhupada and Krishna Balaram, give me the strength. I don't want to fall asleep. I don't want to die like this. I want to leave my body. If you want me to leave my body, it's fine, but I want to leave my body chanting the holy name. It was like an intense, like a clarion call from inside that I have to chant, I have to chant, I have to chant. Now, I was able to think like that basically because of Srila Prabhupada's mercy for last 45 years I've been chanting. And in the last 2 years or 3 years since I've been in Vrindavan, I've increased my chanting. But per se that like there are days when I don't chant less than 64 rounds. I may chant more rounds. I may go away out all the days. I'm going to think of Yamuna, do parikrama, whatever. But I just chant and cut off from the whole world. And that really helped me because when I was in COVID, I started chanting. So as they were giving me injections before that, also I started chanting, and I was chanting very deeply. I was chanting very deeply. And you know, on the second day onwards, I didn't fall asleep like other people did. See, the spiritual energy cannot be contaminated by material energy. And it's a fact. Holy name is a spiritual energy. It's the topmost thing. It's none different from Krishna. So if you sincerely and deeply chant Krishna's name, all this injection, everything else cannot do any harm to you. That's my realization, honestly. Second day onwards, third day, I became so much more stronger. Fourth day, I was chanting and these injections didn't bother me. They used to give me so many drugs. Take this, I would say, just leave it, I'll take it myself. And I used to flush them. I wasn't taking this. It was just like completely crazy. This so-called, WHO call that everyone must take this injection medicine, but actually it's just beyond our body's capacity to tolerate. I was seeing literally on average 2 people dying every day in that ward. People in their 40s were dying in the ward. So I am convinced, I have no doubt about it, that my faith in the holy name of Krishna saved me. I was just chanting so intensively. Cannot explain to you. Even though my body was struggling, I was chanting, and it wasn't like I'm chanting now, but I was struggling, but I was chanting and I was chanting, and non-stop. I just chanted. I hardly slept maybe 2 hours in a day. I just didn't want to sleep. I just chanted and chanted and chanted. So that really helped in the time of struggle. And then, of course, when I came home, I had devotees helping me. It took me about 10 days to be able to walk, just because of those injections that I had such a hard time. But I recovered. And there's no doubt in my mind that chanting of the holy name is beyond any material energy or influence on our body. You can see, like, the great examples are there. Haridas Thakur was whipped in so many 22 different cities. Nothing happened to him because he was chanting the holy name with so much love and devotion. Prahlad Maharaj was chanting the holy name, giving the holy name. He was getting great joy out of giving the holy name to all the children of the demons. And just imagine being in a chamber with poisonous snakes, or being thrown into boiling oil, or all kinds of things, all crazy things Hiranyakasipu was trying to do to kill Prahlad. Nothing. No material energy can touch you if you go into deep connection with the holy name. So we are not in that position to be like that for Prahlad Maharaj or Haridas Thakur, but we are in a position to chant the holy name seriously and call out for Krishna seriously. And Krishna will do miracles for you. Does it answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, very much. Having faith in our practices and chanting. There's a question in the chat that I'm just going to read out to you. It's from Umika Mataji. And thank you, Umika Mataji, for your question. And I'll just read what she's written, which is, Hare Krishna Trikalajna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for a wonderful, inspiring class. With regards to preaching to others, i.e. public, family, and friends, how do we best share and give them Krishna consciousness, which is easily digestible for them, help them keep the taste of Krishna consciousness without overwhelming them with too much philosophy and practical application of standards? Thank you. Did you catch that? Or?
Very nice. It's a very nice question. It's a very practical question, and it's is a question that we all have to take, a question and subject matter that all devotees have to take very seriously. Because every individual we are dealing with, they are at different levels. It's not like there is a standard process. General process is there, yes, chant and be happy and chant. But in order to get people to become happy to chant is also a process in itself, And people have reservations. Many people have many reservations, and some people will take longer, and others will take, lesser time. And very rarely there'll be instant, development of love for Krishna in people's hearts and minds. So it's like Srila Prabhupada was like a touchstone. So once you met Srila Prabhupada, you didn't have to meet him again. He was a real touchstone. He was spiritually so advanced, and he was so compassionate and giving that he was giving it like with so much love and devotion. He was so deeply convinced that what I'm giving is the only thing that to give that is good for people to get. And that's why when Prabhupada met people, they met him once or twice and their whole life changed. On the contrary, we are not anywhere near level of Srila Prabhupada, but we are fortunate to have his blessings flowing, from one generation to another, and we are able to be Krishna conscious and also give Krishna conscious to others. So you have to be careful. Like Prabhupada has given many examples. For example, a kind of a crude example is like one American lady came to Srila Prabhupada. She said, Guru Maharaj, my husband used to eat meat every day, but now he's only eating twice a week or so. And so what should I do? Should I leave him or let go? Or what? Some dialogue took place. And Srila Prabhupada said, if he's making advancement, tolerate it. So again, just as much as giving is important, tolerance is also important for us, because sometimes when you're trying to give Krishna consciousness to other people, they're not going to move as fast as you would like them to move. Of course, you want them to be Krishna conscious, but patience has to be there. Patience is a virtue. Preaching is the essence. So when you are preaching, preach with that vow and understand that that person is at a certain level which you are not fully aware of. And the only way you will become aware of that person's consciousness is as you are giving them knowledge and science, how much they are taking, how much they are practicing, how much they are refuting, how much they are rebelling within their mind. You have to find out also. And the best way to do that is by becoming a friend. Befriend people before you give them Krishna consciousness. That's what I say. Become their friend. Become a good example. Don't try to impose it upon them. You become a good example, especially for family and friends. You have to be a good example. If you're a good example and they see that there is a level of discipline and that like it is so meaningful to you, it will have an indirect impact on those family and friends. And I personally experienced that. So be patient. Be giving, but be patient. Be ready to tolerate some other challenges you come across. And occasionally, on very rare time, you will come across a person who will not be able to take to Krishna consciousness. But that doesn't mean you're a failure. It's not because of you. It's because they have many more layers of karma from their previous lives that you're not going to be unearthed for them. However, that Lord Chaitanya's mercy is incredible. So if you can save Gopinath Bhatnaik at the last second, why can't you save anybody else in any stage of life? So we have to, with folded hands, be humble. Humility is a process. Be humble and pray to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Pray to Srila Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that I am not able to help this person, but I am begging you to bestow mercy upon this soul, so that desert-like heart that is prevailing in this person is turned into beautiful rose gardens, for the pleasure of your lordships. So when you offer those prayers for the soul, you will feel so much more happier, because you first thing is you acknowledge and realize that you are not able to get anywhere with this person. Second thing is that if it's beyond you, there is always somebody else, a senior devotee or Srila Prabhupada's mercy or Lord Chaitanya's mercy, whichever. You pray, and prayers are very powerful things. When we pray for other people's welfare, Krishna does listen. Lord Chaitanya does bestow. He does give, Gaura Prem to them also. And you'll be surprised. Continue doing giving your association little by little. Don't stop, but let Krishna interact with them. Okay?
Hi, Hare Krishna. It's Jonathan here.
Yes.
That was a wonderful lesson. Thank you so much. Could I ask a question about earlier you referred to lust as one of the biggest, I think, bodily sins. I can't remember exactly how you put it. But perhaps could you clarify maybe a little bit more of the context or the nature of that lust? Because something I'm finding very hard to reconcile in my understanding of existence is that if lust is such a great sin, and I can definitely see circumstances and cases where lust just destroys people, families, etc. But what I can't reconcile is that lust to me seems like even in a healthy marriage, it seems to be an integral part. It is a motivating factor in doing the love act, which leads to a child being born. I can't see a way of which we can procreate, have children without some element of lust. So how can lust be bad in all forms?
Very interesting question.
It's very important to understand lust first itself. Lust itself is a terminology that often we don't understand clearly or realize it clearly. Lust is not just a form of sex, but lust means any form of greed that is beyond nature's giving. So like if you become very wealthy and you want to become more wealthy, that is also a form of lust. If you're a politician and you want to become a bigger politician, that's also a form of lust. In other words, the nature of greed is such that no matter how much you get, you always want more and more and more. The reason we are like that generally is because it's the nature of the material world. And in the material world is meant to be tapobhumi. Tapobhumi means it's a planet where we are supposed to be performing austerities. And austerity is also another terminology that we must understand. Austerity doesn't mean that, okay, I won't eat one day a week and that's austerity. No, austerity means that to be able to control, vacho vegam, jiva vegam, jiva, jiva is tongue. And manaso krodha vegam, mind control, anger control. All these things are very important. If we can learn to understand them first, then we can control. How to control the mind, how to control the tongue, how to control the anger. One of the things is like, if you do not control your anger, at the end of the day, you become completely bewildered. Because what happens is when we are in an angry mood, we will abuse ourselves by misusing our tongue, for example. You're angry with your spouse, and therefore you abuse the spouse by using a foul word. You're angry with some opposition party and the politicians, so you abuse your tongue. Again, I say abuse your tongue because that's what's happening in reality. We are fooling ourselves because we think by using some foul words or bad words or bad mouthing somebody, you think that I'm feeling good. No, you don't actually feel good. You get worse. And the other party also gets worse. So is that a real common sense thing to do? Is that a human thing to do? Never mind about spirituality and all that. Just this common sense thing, is it a good thing to do? So if you understand the word terminology lust, that it comes in many different forms, and then that different forms turn into different kind of wraths, and then those wraths turn your life into a misery. Do you really want that? Do you really need that? No, nobody needs that. Therefore, it's important that we understand how to control our mind and tongue, and that should come through the heart. Often we say, listen to your heart, don't listen to your mind. The mistake that everyone does make is that we listen to our mind and we act so spontaneously, so instantly, especially when something's not going our way. We have a tendency to attack, we have a tendency to jump and act and react in such a way that it does not damage only to others, but initially is doing damage to yourself, which you don't realize. And that's what you call ignorance, mode of ignorance. When we act like that, we are acting in complete mode of ignorance, never mind of passion and mode of goodness. Our goal is to come to Brahma Bhuta platform, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, na swachati na kangsati. to rise above all the modes is very important. Even if you are in mode of goodness, and mode of passion and mode of ignorance will prevail somehow or another, and it'll pull you down unless you have proper guidelines, So please try to understand what is lust, and then try to kind of balance that greed that breeds inside your mind because of lust. At the same time, remember that Krishna is seated within your heart as Paramatma. He is guiding you all the time. And if you, in times of challenges, listen to him. Don't try to put your hand in the water when there is a tidal wave. Wait for the tide to slow down, and then you'll see the object you're looking for. So when there is a challenge with your spouse or with your friends or with your politicians or whoever, take your time, pray, chant the holy name, and think wisely. Call upon the Supreme Lord that this is now a difficult time for me. Please help me so that my greed doesn't, doesn't take me in the wrong direction. Then you'll be able to control the lust. Otherwise, if it's just you against me and me against him and him against her and them against us, it doesn't help. It is us, it's me, myself first. I have to correct myself. I have to be on the right platform. I have to be like a touchstone. Prabhupada, he would even sit with the top chaplains. He would sit with the political leaders, and he would just say, "You guys are rascals and fools," and he would justify it. And they would not argue with him because they could see he's such a saintly person. He was such a great example. Become a really good loving person in your life. Love Krishna, then you'll love everybody, and then everybody will love you also. Don't try to be me. Mameti. Don't try always to look at yourself and say, how can I be better than others, and how can I be the control freak person? No, don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. It's you, yourself. It's your life. You have limited life. Make sure there's limited number of breaths. Don't waste your breaths. Does it help?
Thank you very much.
So Umi Kamata says, thank you very much for your kind guidance. You answered the question. She has a follow-up question. If you can answer it, we are conscious of time as well.
Yeah, we'll stop with this question, Prabhu.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This will be the last one, yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
She says, Hare Krishna Trikalajna Prabhu, how can we develop more love, attachment, connection, and devotion to Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada? Maybe a connection problem.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada would just say, do what I did with my spiritual master. I performed austerities, I prepared, and then I carried out his instructions. Our instructions that we are given are not so complicated. We're not being asked to go to another part of the planet and translate and do everything that Srila Prabhupada did. But we are just simply being asked, to follow our sadhana bhakti, which is good for ourselves. So our sadhana bhakti has to be very, very disciplined. Then preaching is the essence. So carry out the preaching. Have a discipline in doing your preaching also. At least once a week, or if you can do more, great. Don't just go to a friend circle. Go to a completely strange place. When I wanted to join ISKCON, they told me for 1 year I have to do door-to-door, book distribution. I had very little knowledge, or no knowledge, you could say. And they just told me, just go. It's okay. Just knock on the door and tell them you're giving them a book which is all about themselves, science of self-realization. I used to knock on the door. My wife and I used to go from door to door, literally almost 5 days a week, knocking on the doors. And then Saturday, Sunday, we'd go out with the devotees all day, distributing books. And we had to perform that austerity for 1 year, but it was great joy. We developed great love in what we were doing. You have to learn to give more time to Krishna consciousness and developing your own Krishna consciousness, and less time to yourself on the mundane platform. You have to sacrifice your time, and you have to be giving, and then follow your Guru Maharaj's instructions. Guru will be very happy. Guru Maharaj will be very happy if you follow the instructions. Are you chanting your 16 hours? Yes. Are you following the principles? Yes. You have a strong sadhana program. Are you preaching? Yes. So all the things that have been asked to do, if it's yes, 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 then you know you're on the right track. If 50% is yes and 50% is no, or possibly yes, then you work on the areas or sectors and see how you can improve yourself. And sometimes, if certain things are difficult, then take some counseling from some senior devotees, or write to the spiritual master and say, "This is my challenge. How do I deal with it?" It's just common sense, really. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for inviting me. I'm in Vrindavan. You're all welcome to Vrindavan. When you come to Vrindavan, please let me know. We'll be happy to arrange, nice time, or a program can be so well disciplined. We'll allow you to sleep for maybe 2 to 3 hours a day to make sure your time is maximized. So you get up early in the morning, go and do parikrama, and then go out to the places of pilgrimage. And yeah, really, when you come here, don't come here with a plan to sleep. If you come here and you practice there, when you go back, it'll be so much more easier. Thank you all so much.
We are requesting everyone to take a sabbatical of 1 year. As Prabhu has very clearly mentioned, be ready for 1 year sabbatical. Not 500 days, at least 365 days.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Haribo, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for your time and wonderful class, Prabhu. Really appreciate that.
Hare
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yes.
Any other announcements, Pratap Maya Prabhu, Ramkanya Prabhu?
We normally have a meeting after this,
Yes.
but I think we're just
Okay.
gonna
So all of